Hi! Recently, I got a bundle of 5 PlayStations and the listing didn't say much, just that some weren't tested and others were definitely not working. So let's start right away with the first one and see if it works. So obviously, I'll need to clean the case because it's very dusty, and on the back there's also these notes saying private property or personal property, useful objects, consoles, peripherals, or accessories. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean, but let's see if the console turns on. And now let's see what happens when I turn on the PlayStation. But I definitely have a problem with the power supply because the LED doesn't even lights up. So I I guess I'll check the power supply section to see if something is wrong. Well, in here there is a lot of dust, so I'll have to clean everything very well. And this button, it's also very stiff. The open mechanism is working, so it's not broken, but it definitely needs some cleaning. So let's open the PlayStation and see why it's not working. And as always, I want to remind you that my videos are based on my personal experience and should not be interpreted as tutorials. Certain repair procedures involve handling internal power supply components that might retain an electric charge. Do not attempt to replicate my actions without the guidance of an expert. Well, opening up the first PlayStation is actually pretty simple. You just need to remove a couple of screws from the back and then you can already see what's inside, the laser and the power supply section, and the spring of the opening mechanism is actually fine. So I guess I just need to clean it or just use some WD-40. But for now, I'll just focus on the power supply section because I really want to understand why it doesn't even turn on. So I was going to remove this part and have a closer look at the microscope when I noticed that this cable, it's not even connected. So obviously it won't work in this way. Let's see if something changes and test the PlayStation again after reconnecting the cable. But unfortunately, I still have the same problem and the LED doesn't even lights up again. So I think that they already removed this connector because they already tried to fix the PlayStation, but unfortunately for me, they failed. So the next thing I want to do is to remove this part from the case so I can have a closer look at the power supply section. I gave a quick look at the board and nothing stood out as an immediate problem, even though I did find this lag inside the case on the power supply section. I think it comes from a component, but I didn't find anything strange. So the first thing I would check is the fuse. It doesn't seem to be working. You should hear this sound, but maybe I just have some dirty contacts. Let's see. Let's try again. But it doesn't seem to be working. Usually when you have a blown fuse, you can see that because it's transparent and there is a wire that goes from a side to the other. And when it's blown, you usually see that that wire is also broken. But in this case, since it's a ceramic fuse, I really cannot tell if it's blown or not. But there is no continuity. So I definitely need to replace this. Usually when you have to replace a broken fuse, there is also something else on the board that is causing the fuse to broke. So let's have a look at the microscope. Well, under the microscope, I noticed that this pin isn't making proper contact. It moves quite a bit, so I think that the little lag fragment I found earlier actually came from it. This is the FET, a type of transistor, and it's one of the most stressed components. So if the solder joints loosen, it can fail quite easily. I'm not sure though if in this case it wasn't soldered or if it actually degraded over time. I was about to replace the fuse, but I realized the ceramic fuses I had were too big, 3 centimeters instead of 2, and they were rated at 2 amps instead of 1.6. After a few days, the correct ones arrived, so now we can finally test it. I was finally able to change the fuse, and now let's see if it turns on. Well, we have a green light. That's definitely a good sign. And it works! So I guess I really just needed to change the fuse and reflow that pin. Let's also try a game. But I think I have a problem with the gamepad. It doesn't seem to be working. It's mine, so I'm sure it's not a problem of the gamepad, but it doesn't seem to be working. And also, usually you have a little arrow here pointing at memory card or CD player, but there's nothing here. Let's try the other port. Let's see what happens. But it's not working, so it turns on. That's definitely an improvement from before, but we have a problem with the gamepad. I also want to test the game just to see if the laser is working. Let's try Medieval, which is one of my favorite games for the PlayStation. I also have a medieval shield back here. I'm not sure if you can see that. Let's see if you can also read a game. I really hope it will work. Well, it looks like it's spinning. And it works! So it turns on and the laser works. But we definitely have a problem with the gamepad. I think that by this point I should be able to skip this part. But you can see that nothing is working. So I guess I have to reopen the PlayStation and see what the problem might be. When you're having a problem with the gamepad, it's usually because of some cold solder joints on the C102 connector. It doesn't seem like we have some cold solder joints or anything here, but just to be sure, I want to reflow these traces later. But for now, I just want to check the fuses over here. Let's see if they work. Okay, this one is working. Okay, it works. Let's see. It's not very easy to test them with these probes. I really want to test this one marked with a 15. Okay, it works because this one supplies the connector with the 3.5 volts. So if you're having a problem with the gamepad, it's probably because of this fuse over here. Now let's check the ferrite beds or blocks. Let's see. Okay, it works. It doesn't seem to be working. Okay, let's check the other ones before that block. Okay, it works. This one also works. Okay, let's check these two and then I'll check this one again. It's not very easy to test them, actually. Maybe my probes are a bit too big. Let's see. But it's not working. Well, I could try to replace it and see if this one is what's causing the problem, but I don't have a spare one, so I'll have to order it and wait for the component until I can replace it. And to do that, I want to use low melt solder. I'm not sure if you already know this kind of solder, but it's just normal solder with a lower melting point. I usually set my soldering iron at 400 degrees, which can sometimes damage components. And now it's set to 200 degrees. And to give you an idea, look how easily the solder melts. But this is normal solder. You can see how hard it is to melt this solder. So it's definitely useful. And also it's lead free. Lead can damage your health, so it's definitely better not to use it. But at the same time, it's very hard to solder without lead. So I guess low melt solder is a good compromise. Unfortunately, I had to wait quite a while for this Paris block, but luckily I managed to replace it without any issues. I choose to use a regular soldering iron instead of a hot air soldering station simply because I felt like I had more control over the soldering. And now, finally, let's see if it works. Okay, it's working. I'll also check all the other components just to be sure, but it seems to be working now, so I really want to test the gamepad now. Okay, let's reflow this connector. And now we have a fully reflowed connector, and we can test the gamepad of the PlayStation. And now let's see if it works. I really hope I fixed the gamepad problem. Otherwise, I'll have to reopen the PlayStation and see what the problem might be. Well, you can see here we have the cursor and it's working. Let's also test the other keys. Let's see. Let's try medieval so we can test all the keys.
A few moments later.
Well, I've tested the game for a while and you can see that every key is working. So finally, we can move on to the next PlayStation. Okay, and now let's also test the second PlayStation. I really hope it will work. But it's not working, so I guess we have another power supply problem. I don't even see the LED here. Okay, now we have a red LED, so I guess I just didn't push the power supply all the way in, but it feels a bit loose, so maybe over time with repeated pressure it became a bit loose. I'll need to check that later, but for now, let's see if it turns on. It works! It turns on. Let's also test a game. This is actually one of my favorite games from when I was little. Let's see if it works and if it also reads the game. But unfortunately, I think it's not working. And it's not even spinning a little bit. It's actually hard to spin. And it's really dusty inside. Usually when I have a problem with a laser on a ps2, the disc is actually spinning, but it just doesn't work. But in this case, the disc isn't even spinning. It's like the PlayStation doesn't know that the disc isn't there. So I guess I have to open the PlayStation and see if I can also solve this problem. So let's open up the PlayStation. It's really easy. Even in this case, we just have a couple of screws on the back and then we can open it. I'm not sure if you can see that, but on the back it says number 17 and no disc. So I guess someone already tested this PlayStation and they already figured out that the disk drive doesn't work. Even though I'm not sure what number 17 means, let's remove these little rubber feet and open the PlayStation. Well, I have to say it's really dusty. I'll have to clean everything really well. And I also want to replace the thermal pads, since some of them are really dirty and others are also a bit ruined. So just to be safe, I want to replace them. And the power supply connector is actually fine. Sometimes by inserting and removing the connector over time, one of these pins can break, but everything is fine here, so I want to focus on the laser part. I need to remove a couple of screws and then I can have access to the laser. Just a couple of screws and I already removed the laser, so it's very easy to do that. And now I want to clean this part, which allows the laser to move. I don't think that's what's causing the issue, but this kind of dust can definitely prevent the laser to move in the right way, so I'm going to clean it, and just to be safe, I'm going to add some new grease. After cleaning it, I'm applying first grease, and I also want to clean these switches that detect when the PlayStation is closed. While I'm in here, I've also replaced the thermal pads, cleaned the fan inside, and taken the chance to wash the outer shell, including the PlayStation shell too, since it was really dirty. And now finally, let's see if it works. Everything is clean now, so I really hope it wasn't reading the disk just for some dust on the laser. Well, it is spinning. That's definitely a good sign. And it works! It's loading the game. Let's see if everything works fine. It loads the game, so far so good. And it's taking forever to load the game, so that there's something wrong for sure. I want to check the potentiometers on the back of the laser, just to be safe. Let's check these potentiometers. Let's see. Well, the first one is at 1200 ohms, which is a bit high. I usually find this value at 900 ohms, so maybe I'll try to decrease this of 100 and 150 ohms, not more. Let's test this one too. It's around 250 ohms. Let's have a look at the laser. Well, I have to say there is a lot of dust, so I'll try to be careful and remove all of this dust over here. Wow, okay, this is definitely not helping the laser to read the game. I tried to clean the laser truly, but it wasn't easy since these fibers seemed stuck to the surrounding plastic. After putting everything back together, I tested it again and it worked. And now, before moving on with the next PlayStation, there's also one thing worth mentioning. When you're fixing old things, finding replacement parts or custom pieces isn't always easy, especially if you don't have a 3D printer at home or if you're looking for something specific for your own projects. For example, I fix and mod my consoles, but I don't always find a long-term solution, and that's where PCBWay comes in. They offer many services, including custom PCBs, injection molding, 3D printing, and many other features you can explore on their website. You can either find ready-made projects or design your own from scratch, and you have a lot of control over the details like the size, layout, shape, and even things like the solder mask color and how the traces will look. On top of that, their website features a large active community with makers from all over the world sharing their work. A lot of these projects have a strong retro feel, and it's surprisingly easy to spend quite a bit of time browsing through them. So if you're interested, I'll have a link in the description below, and now let's move on to the next PlayStation. Let's move on to the second PlayStation 2, but I have to say, I think we're going to have another power supply problem because I don't even see the red LED here, and it doesn't turn on. So I guess I'll have to open even this PlayStation. On the back, we don't have the rubber fit, so I think someone already opened this PlayStation and maybe it's not turning on because something isn't connected properly inside, maybe the power supply button. So let's open this PlayStation and see what the problem might be. First of all, let's check the connector. The positive and negative sides shouldn't be connected. Okay, so the connector is working. Let's check the voltage. I should have 9 volts in, so let's see. Okay, have 9 volts. I still have 9 volts here and here, and even on the fuse. And obviously this fuse is working. So I have the voltage, but obviously I'm losing it somewhere in the path. So I should check for a short on the board maybe, but before that I want to check all the fuses. Let's start with the first one, even if I already know it's working. Okay. And the useful thing is that if I find a broken fuse, I can read here the value on the back of the board and replace it. Let's check this one. It's not very easy since they're very small. Okay, this one is working. Let's check ps3. It's working. ps15. It's working. Okay. And then we should have ps19. It's working. So far, so good. So maybe the fuses aren't really the issue here. We have ps11. Okay. And then we have ps1. But it doesn't seem to be working. Yeah, ps11 works. We have ps7, which is working, but not ps1. Let's see, maybe it's just a bit dirty. Let's check this again. But nothing. And the others are working. So I guess I need to replace this fuse because I think we have another open circuit even on this PlayStation. I used low mode solder again, and it's definitely very helpful for removing SMD's components without damaging them. I removed the old fuse and replaced it with a new one, and the values vary depending on the board, but the useful thing is that you can actually find them on the back. In this case, I used a 0.5 amps and 36 volts fuse. Let's test the console, but I already see that we have a red light, so I really hope it's going to work. It turns on. Let's try the laser. Let's see if it reads the game. So reverb. I really hope the gamepad will work as well. Seems to be working fine. And it's reading the game. I guess we have a problem with the laser again. Let's open the PlayStation. I already see that we have a problem with this ribbon cable. That's so strange. I'll try to open it again. So apparently there's nothing wrong, but I've just cleaned this part too much, and now the ribbon cable isn't stuck in this position, so I'll just use some double-sided tape to put it back in place. Luckily, it doesn't seem like anything got ruined. The laser was reading the disc, so hopefully it will work. Let's put some tape and test the console again. Finally, let's see if it works. I really hope it will read the disc. Oh. So at first I thought I was having a problem with the power button because the blue part of the ribbon cable actually fell off, and here we also have this little part that tells the console when the case is closed. So I thought it was the problem, but then I've changed it with another one and it's still not working. We still have the same problem, so I guess this ribbon cable got ruined before. Let's test all the traces. Let's see if maybe one of them is disconnected and we will have to reconnect them. For now, they all seem to be working, so maybe it's not this ribbon cable after all. So they're all working except for the last one. It seems like it's not making contact. Okay, let's check the cable. Let's see. Well, I don't see anything strange actually. Maybe there. Yeah, there is a little spot where it looks like it's broken, but it could also be just 30. Let's see. No, it's broken. Okay. I'll try to reconnect it. Hopefully, I can fix this ribbon cable because I don't have another one. So I'll have to order it if I don't manage to fix it and wait for the replacement.
I secured everything with some tape so it wouldn't move, then I carefully scraped off the coating. I added some first solder on both sides and connected it with a copper wire. Finally, I covered everything with solder mask to protect it and prevent shorts, then cured it with UV light.
Let's test the laser again. Hopefully, I fixed everything. I have to say, if it works, I'm lucky because the ribbon cable broke in a part where it doesn't move. So let's see. Looks like it's spinning. That's a good sign. Seems like it's reading the game. Okay. That's where it broke before, so let's wait a little longer. It's making me choose the language and the gamepad is working. Okay. Looks like it's working, but that's where the PlayStation 2 before got stuck. Finally, it works. Okay, I have to say this one was really hard to fix. Let's move on to the last PlayStation 2. Finally, the last PlayStation 2, but I really don't want to test it because it's already opened. So I took a quick look inside and noticed right away that the fan isn't even connected. So clearly someone already opened this PlayStation, but they didn't put everything back in place, at least in the right way. So I'll try to remove everything and then reassemble the PlayStation before testing it, but I can already see that some parts are missing. These two screws are missing, so I'll try my best.
I took everything apart and a few screws were missing here and there, but overall it hasn't been reassembled too badly. I cleaned the dust, replaced the thermal pads, and swapped the battery. Then I started installing the new fan into its housing. I tested the PlayStation and it powered on, but unfortunately the disk drive wouldn't open. While putting it back together, I noticed that the ribbon cables were pretty worn. So I checked them with a multimeter and one of them didn't seem to be properly connected to the board. It was in really bad shape. I trimmed the excess part of the blue stiffener and reattached the cable. After checking again with the multimeter, everything was connected.
Let's see if it works now. It is working, so I guess the only problem was related to that ribbon cable. It wasn't properly connected. So now let's see if the laser works. Let's test Soul River. Let's see if it works. It is spinning. And it looks like the laser is moving, so I guess it's reading the game. It works! Now I really want to reassemble everything and also insert the SSD, and then finally I can move on to the last PlayStation. Here we have the last PlayStation and I really hope it will work. There is a good sign. We have a red light. So let's see. Looks like it's turning on. We have a green light, but nothing on the screen. And it works! So finally, a PlayStation that turns on right away. Let's also test the gamepad. It's mine, so I'm sure it's working. It is a bit dirty though. Okay, the gamepad also works. Let's test a game. Let's see if the laser also works. Looks like it's reading the disk. So now we have 5 out of 5 working PlayStations, even if the PlayStation 3 was already working, but I still want to open it and give everything a good clean inside, because usually in the PlayStation 3 the fan is very dusty. But for now, this video ends here. Let me know in the comments what you think, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to my Patreon page, and see ya in the next video. Bye!